Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Sideline Eye podcast. This is our review show, and we're looking back at the Armagh Tyrone game from the weekend. And joining me to do so is former Armagh and Cross McGlane star, Kernan. So, Aaron, great to have you on again, coming on the show to talk about the Armagh game once again. I suppose from the weekend, not the result Armagh wanted, positive in parts, and if things had went our way, maybe in the last 20, 25 minutes, could have got a result, but I suppose there is positives to pick out from the game.
Yeah, the fact that with whatever you say, it was 15, 20 minutes to go, we had just scored a goal, created the penalty, which obviously, unfortunately, we didn't take. But at that stage, from having been at the game, I definitely felt that we were very much the team on the up, and I think the body language of both teams, just off the back of the penalty miss, completely changed. I felt that we were starting to get a really good run on Tyrone, and we looked very confident at that stage. And to be fair, their body language didn't look great in terms of even their communication across the field. I was sort of struggling to see where their leadership was going to come from. They all seemed to be just minding their own patches. But yeah, it's just funny how games go. We were definitely in the ascendancy, and they took huge heart off Niall Morgan's penalty save. And to be fair, they finished very strongly. But I would have thought that there was maybe just a few contributing factors towards that, in terms of, like I say, knocked a bit of air momentum. The miss, psychologically, it would have been a blow to us as well. And couple that with Rory's black card that just happened as well. We had so many injuries in the first half. So it looked like we were starting to flag towards the end and run out a bit of steam. But yeah, scored 210 again, which is a decent score, but unfortunately to be letting in 215 and in Division 1, it's a harsh lesson to pay.
Well, it's disappointing, obviously, not getting the win and not getting the 2 points that would have helped secure Division 1 status for at least another season anyway. But the fact it's Tyrone and they've really held the upper hand against Armagh for 10 years, it was probably tougher to take on.
It was, yeah. I was getting a wee bit carried away now once. I seen Rain's great ball into Conor Turbot and him finishing it off. Then the penalty comes straight after it. I was thinking tables are starting to turn here, hopefully, but didn't work out that way. I think we all were a bit deflated after it, but to put yourself in the position where you have the winning lane in sight, and like I say, and throwing that in with all the disruption that there was in the first half, and the fact that we're only 2 weeks into adapting to life at the top level after being out of it for so long, that in itself is hugely positive. But I think if you look at the bigger picture of it, I definitely think there's so much room for improvement, collectively and individually, across the board with the team, and whether that is a matter of just lack of match sharpness, or lack of match practice from some of the boys, or whether it just is the step up to Division 1. But definitely, I feel there's scope for improvement, and it's another big week ahead. It's a challenging week because it's a matter of trying to see who's fit to walk first, and then try and get back out and work on the learnings that we can take out of the weekend, because everything's just coming very rapidly and there's just so much pressure with each game, and so much riding on it, to be honest with you, because like I say, we'll deal with championship whenever that comes around, but the ultimate goal was to get to Division 1, and it flips this year that the ultimate goal is to make sure we stay there. But again, it's in our own hands. We have a home game, and yeah, anything's possible.
Yeah, and we'll definitely talk on the injuries and how that's going to impact next week. It's going to have a massive impact, obviously. But just to start on, I suppose we'll start from the beginning of the game. Tyrone raced into an early lead. They were 1-3 to 1 point up straight away. You were thinking, I got memories of 2017 in Croke Park. I think they went 1-5 to not 1 up that time when Peter Hart got the goal. But Armagh done well. They brought themselves back into it. I think the next score was Charlie Ogue's goal. And I suppose Rian O'Neill showed his unselfishness there to pass the ball across for Charlie Ogue to top it in. But for such a disaster start, it was good to see Armagh responding well and not letting the heads drop.
Absolutely. Like I think if you look at the game in a whole, it was the exact opposite of what happened the week before. Where in that case against Monaghan, it was us that started really well, and they come back into it. And like you say, definitely whenever they went 1-3 up, at that stage, their body language, you could obviously there was no one else in the ground, but they were controlling it all, shouting, roaring, dictating, organising. And you felt that we were really up against it, but you have to say how we reacted and how we worked the goal in particular. At that stage, like Tyrone had an awful lot of men behind the ball, but a bit of direct running, bit of a very unselfish play from Rain, like you say. And I'd say what my short time been there with Geezer, the one thing they always talked about at that stage was finishing your run to the end. And I think that's what's going to please him. Charlie Oak started with the ball outside the 45 and kept going. And if you look back at it, the three Tyrone defenders that were nearest to him all turned and ball watched towards Rain. And Charlie Oak continued his run to the back post for a simple palm in. It seems like it's simple, but you have to have that bit of drive and desire to get on the end of things. And that, like I said, just give Armagh a huge lift. And we went on, it was, score for score from then on for the rest of the half. But it definitely, it was needed, but it was all created by our own hard work at that stage.
Yeah, it was definitely needed, and it was crucial to how the game played out and Armagh getting back on level terms then by half time. But Arne, I want to talk on the concentration maybe of the Armagh players. Is there a tendency maybe to switch off? Because we talked about Peter Hart's goal at the start. They let Tyrone get a run on them, then straight after half time, Tyrone got a goal that was ultimately disallowed for a square ball. And then straight after the second water break, Tyrone got another goal, the Mark Bradley goal, that sort of pushed them on to a winning position. Is there a case of maybe a lost concentration or maybe switching off? And in Division 2, maybe that's not seen as much, Division 2 and 3, but in Division 1, you're punished instantly.
I would say you're right there. You can't take your eye off the ball for a minute here, even if the ball doesn't feel like it's anywhere near you. If you're defending, you need to know where your man is. You need to know, am I in a good position here to help out our team? Attacking wise, you have to put maximum pressure. That's what the top teams do. All across the field. If you look at your Kerrys, Dublin, Mayo's, it's the pressure that they put their opponents on coming out. All you're looking to do is slow them up, put doubts in their head. The more you slow up them, your opponents while they're attacking, the better position we should be in defensively if and when they do break out. But yeah, that would be concerning for Kieran. The first goal, it happened off the cuff, to be honest with you. It was from a kick out, but from a Tyrone perspective, they smelled blood straight away. Again, I was at the game, I could see it. Like there wasn't a goal on at that stage, but PB Hart, like he breaks from 20 metres behind where Derek Hannivan wins the ball. And they were thinking one thing only, and that was the goal. I suppose from a perspective of what we've seen an awful lot happening over the weekend, there's so many goals that was got between the Donegal Monaghan game, Kerry, Dublin, the Armagh game, where it's fist passes over and it's just taken out complete defences or taking out the last defenders, and you have men racing through on goal. You had two in the Armagh game, was the same thing. It was a fisted ball over the top, but we've seen the same thing happen in the Donegal, same thing happen in the Kerry. So maybe again, this is something where you just need to be switched on, you say, completely for the entirety, and always know your bearings from where you are to the goal and your opponent. And I said that seems to be something that a lot of the teams are trying at this stage, is that we think ball that's going over the top, and you have one-on-ones going through and keepers.
I know we spoke about it last week, Aaron, that Armagh are getting enough men behind the ball to set up a good defensive screen. They've maybe 12 or 13 men back on occasions, but there still is gaps there. Like got Peter Hart one, he run through the centre of the defence. When for the second goal, when Kernan fisted the ball through, like there's a lot of space there for Mark Bradley to run into. And I know that was just after the water break. Maybe Armagh didn't get a chance to set up properly, but it's definitely a concern conceding goals like that, especially like, as we said, Division 1 teams are going to punish you.
Yeah, well, in all those instances, for the two goals they got and the one that was disallowed, they were happening from set plays again, and albeit your kickouts or your throw-ins. So if you go back to what just reminded me a bit of those situations is the Owen Merchant's goal in the All-Ireland replay of 2019, where the game's just starting, and it has to just be a psychological thing where you're just coming out and you're not completely switched on to what's happening around you. You're maybe just standing waiting on your four midfielders to go and contest the ball, and then we'll see what happens here. But again, it was a very, very harsh lesson that we learned at the weekend in terms of throw-ins or even our own kickouts, that we have to be switched on at all times and ready to put the maximum intensity on the nearest opponent that you can get your hands on. Because it cost us 2 goals at the weekend and could nearly have cost us a third, where we were sort of lucky enough to get away with it. But again, it'll be valuable learnings that we'll have to look into this week. Conceding 2-15 is not going to be acceptable from the management team, and Kieran McGeeney, he'll be having his own plan in place in terms of defensively how that can be worked on and improved. They don't have a huge amount of time to do it, and there'll be a lot of walkthroughs maybe in training this week, because it's more about recovery. But we do need to learn from those, because we have another huge game this weekend, and it'll be followed up potentially by another the following. So we just need to be learning on our feet every opportunity we can get here.
And like, our defence is going to be limited probably next week, Aaron. We touched on the injuries. Not sure about James Morgan. I think there's hope for him, maybe, that he'll be fit to play, but it's not looking good for Aidan Falker and Ryan Kennedy, who left the ground in crutches. And Paddy Burns is just can't get a bit of luck. Paddy Burns to get her on a game. He went off with a hamstring injury again. Big concerns are that, like, Armagh's bench isn't stacked with defenders either. The boys coming on, like Paddy Burns come on obviously as a defender, but I think Ross McQuillan come on wing half back. We've been forced to play Kieran O'Hanlon in the defence. It's troubling that Armagh have so many defensive injuries. It is.
It was just getting beyond the joke leading up to half time. You get Morby. I would hope I just spoke to him briefly at the club games yesterday, and he took a knock. The first ball he went for himself, and Conor Mack and collided with each other. But he's hopeful he'll be okay. But yeah, definitely I'd be very surprised, unfortunately, if both Aidan and Ryan Kennedy were able to play this weekend. Sort of both fellas would put themselves out there, and they'll do everything that they can. But realistically speaking, if it's ankle ligament damage, particularly, you might get away with it if you're coasting around the middle of the field or half forward, half back lines. But if you're an inside defender and you need to be able to turn sharp, ankle ligament damage, no matter how much taping you're doing it, unfortunately, I'm not sure you'll be able to protect it. And you see Paddy Burns, he ripped the hamstring right in front of us. Unfortunately, you could be looking at another 6 to 8 weeks layoff for him. But we probably know fairly early in the week where we're at. You had Barry McCambridge who came in, you had Ross McQuillan who came in, Brendan Donaghy was still on the bench. I'm not sure where the likes of Mark Shields and that is at in terms of fitness wise, or whether he's injured. But we have a good scope. Sorry, Paul Hughes as well, obviously come on, who has huge experience. So if you have the likes of Paul Hughes, maybe Brendan Donaghy to fit in along with new and fresh faces and Ross McQuillan and Barry McCambridge, we just have to get up and get on with it. And one man's loss will be another man's gain.
Yeah, and I suppose it's going to come to the stage that you're going to have to ask these young boys to come in and maybe step up. Like some McCambridge come in. He's well renowned as a good club defender, and it was good to see him getting on Saturday evening and making the step up. And I suppose that's what we're looking, isn't it? The likes of McCambridge, McQuillan, and then like Turbo and Jason Duffy at the other end all make the step up now, and Division 1's the place to be doing it, I suppose.
Yeah, well, all them boys played together, throw in the likes of Rian as well, in the team that made the Ulster Under 21 final a couple of years ago. So they have progressed through the ranks, and I think you just have to look at Monaghan, where we'd beaten them last week, and you probably wouldn't have had a whole pile of hope for them, and particularly we said a very, very young forward line. But Seamus McGeeney stuck with them again because he knows them inside out from dealing with them at underage, and he knows the quality they possess. But if you either you don't give a young fella a chance, or you keep pulling them off all the time and not showing a bit of faith in them, the only way you're going to learn is getting a bit of run of games, to build up your confidence and to become acclimatized with that level. Yes, there will be harsh learnings along the way, but if they're not in there, you're not going to learn them. And then that's our future. They're the next batch of good young players we have within the county coming through. And I know that myself from playing against them and seeing them. So yeah, it's going to be a massive opportunity for them. I'm sure Giz will put a bit of faith in them, and it's up to them then to go and try and deliver. There are a few other guys who goes around them, that for me, for one reason or another, whether it's a lack of game time or whatever, haven't been hitting the heights that we know they're absolutely capable of. And I'm thinking of the likes of Soupy and Niall Grimley, in particular, that absolutely fantastic footballers up there with as good a footballers as there is across the country. But like I say, for one reason or another, they're not commanding games the way we come to expect them to do it. It doesn't mean that they're bad footballers. It doesn't mean that they've lost what they have, but it just means we need huge performances from them this weekend. And knowing the personality of both those guys, they'll be bulling and they'll be ready to go this week. But if we can get, big performances out of the likes of them, Oshin's been going well, Ray and Rory Grugan, they've been all ticking along nicely. And still, we know ourselves there's more in them. But it's your experience boys now that we want to really step up this weekend to take control of the game, and it makes it then a wee bit easier on the younger lads who are coming in, because they're only minding their own patch at that stage and trying to do the bit for them.
I suppose we'll move on. You talked about Soupy Campbell there. I suppose we'll move on to the penalty. And unfortunately, unlike last week where he scored it in the first minute, he missed this one that would have put Armagh 4 points ahead. And it was a massive turning point in the game. There's no point in saying otherwise. But I'm just interested to get your thoughts on. You touched on it there. Soupy maybe wasn't having the best of games. He wasn't really in the game, couldn't really get into it. And he still had the confidence to step up and hit the penalty, which is credit to him. But if you were on the line, do you want somebody that's not playing well to be hitting that penalty? Or would you prefer somebody like Rory Grugan who had a good game, or maybe the likes of Arian to hit that penalty?
To be fair, there are times where if you have a designated free taker or a penalty taker and they're not having a good game, you might say we'll maybe hold them off. But Soupy's the type of player that he's just going to step up and do it. He's sort of why you could keep out of the game for 60 minutes and he could hit you for 1, 2 or 3 at the end of it. So I don't think there was any way he was ever going to shirk the responsibility. It's unlike him, because he's very classy on the ball, and we seen from the week before against Rory Beggan, he took this penalty really well. So maybe it was just a case where he was just trying to make sure he connected as well as possible with it to put it away, but he just never got his placing right. It was obviously at a good height for Niall Morgan and more censored than the week before. But no, to be fair, if you're a player his stature and you're county captain, you step up and you take the responsibility. Oisín Campbell would have been very similar for us. He could kick 2 or 3 wides, but he'll just keep going again. And I think that's just what you expect from your top players.
And we'll move on to the goal they did get in the second half, and it was probably the goal of the game for so many reasons. Obviously, Rain's pass inside, Turbo's movement, his wee dummy to get past Morgan and rolled into an empty net with his weaker left foot. So many positives about that. We speak about the forwards all the time on their forwards play, but you've probably seen Rain do stuff like that numerous times, but to see it on the national stage, it's really a credit to him and how good he is, and Turbo as well for the movement inside. Yeah,
they linked up so well, and again, maybe that's just coming from knowing each other throughout their underage careers. But it was like a unbelievable pass, because we were just right in the centre of the shed side, just behind it. But while the quality of the pass was obviously top drawer, Turbo's movement inside was also excellent, because he'd been leading towards the stand side. And I don't know whether the two guys it was a nearly telepathic what they were doing. He must have just given a look, because he didn't actually point the hand or anything that he was cutting back. It was just the shape of his body language that he was going to cut back towards the goal, and Rain whipped it across the body straight into his path. He didn't have to break stride. But to be fair, the Turbo, as soon as he got the ball clean in his hands and lifted his head, Niall Morgan was on top of him. But you said to have the composure to sidestep him, to steady himself with a bounce and roll it into the net. It was fantastic to see. It definitely was a young fella who was full of confidence. And he said that's just makes it, if you relive it, it just makes it that wee bit more disappointing, because just in general terms at that stage you thought, like, yeah, we're in business here, and we're going to finish strong. But yeah, it definitely, it was a fantastic score. Yeah, it was probably something that we could see maybe a wee bit more of, in terms of getting more game time into Conor Turber, because he definitely looked very lively, and the one thing he knows is where the posts are, and they're invaluable in Division 1.
And Rian, I suppose, like, he's played in numerous positions for Armagh and for Crossmaglen as well, midfield, half forward, full forward. Is that his best position, maybe pulling the strings out and giving them wee passes into the likes of a Turbo or Grugan or somebody inside? Or would you rather him maybe inside, getting on the end of them scores?
Yeah, he is. He's versatile. He can go from 8 to 11 to 14. And but personally speaking, I think around the half forward line is where he's at his best, because he's a physical presence in terms of being able to win his own ball, but he has the creativity and he has the ability to kick from long range. Where if you have him on the inside line, obviously his creativity isn't that much, because he's just a finisher. But him kicking a point from 21, 25 meters out, it nearly seems wasted whenever he can boom them over from further out the field. So I've never asked him. I don't know where he would see as being his best position, but personally speaking, that's where I would see him being at his best. And physically, he's so big and so strong. He's got a bit of pace about him, as well. I heard them slagging him. I think he clocked well in his GPS stats in terms of speed at the weekend, which he doesn't get credit for either. But it was a tremendous bit of vision from him, and even something simple like the ball to Charlie Obe. That was just unselfish. It was doing what exactly was right for the team at that stage. And he had another good game at the weekend. And I think there's the likes of him and the rest of the new faces who've never sampled Division 1, the more opportunity they get at this level, I think the more you'll see them flourish.
And we have sort of touched on it there earlier on, but like, there's so many young players coming through the Armagh ranks, and even if you look at the subs bench, there's a lot of youth on it. You talked about them boys that played in that under-20 Ulster final a couple of years back. It's good to see them moving through, and there's a conveyor belt of talent coming through. And I suppose you would have to give credit to the likes of Kieran McGeeney, who has been over the county minors there for the last couple of years. It's good to see the youth coming through, and hopefully Armagh will be able to stay at this level for the next 8 to 10 years with these boys.
Yeah, and again, without heaping too much pressure on that group that's there at the minute, is your senior team are your shop window, and they're the ones who inspire the next generation to come through. Obviously, I know myself, even from growing up, like you go back to 99, I was whatever, you're 15, 16 years of age, and you're seeing Armagh win an Ulster title for the first time and the euphoria that comes with it. But then you're seeing them competing at national level continuously for 10 years, and success does breed success. And to see us competing at the top level, that's like, there's no amount of, I suppose, money or pumping whatever you want into structure or whatever. If your top team are seen up there at the elite, automatically there's that gets young people involved within their clubs and gives them aspirations of going further. And I think just from if nothing else, probably from a selfish point of view for those players too as well, and us as supporters, you'd love to see them making sure that we retain our Division 1 status over the next few weeks, because I think it's just a huge opportunity missed for us this year in terms of not getting the opportunity to play against your Dublins, your Kerrys, your Galways, because again, they're your glamour-tized with the best will in the world. We're probably sick of the sight of playing Ulster teams. You can guarantee you're going to do that every year in an Ulster Championship. But again, it's your trip to Killarney, trip to Salt Hill, down to Croke Park, or having the Dubs in the Athletic Grounds is, again, it's a massive draw in terms of exciting young people, wanting them to pull on the Armagh jersey. And then obviously again, it's what our players want, and they want to be competing against the top teams. And I think that's what just makes the next few weeks that bit more important. Because if we can retain our status, you can be guaranteed that every young fella coming through your development squad, or your 17s or under 20s at the minute, they'll want to be making that squad, and they'll want to be trying to get their own shot at playing at the top level.
And just to finish up on, I suppose it goes without saying how big of a game next week is. To retain our Division 1 status, it's in our own hands. Depending on results, we're going to probably have to win it. With the injury list we have, it's maybe going to be tough, but it is a massive game, and maybe a bit of revenge is in their minds as well from last year, what happened in the Ulster semi-final against Donegal. But this is going to be a huge game for this team, this Armagh team. We talked about this youthful team. If they can get over Donegal and keep their Division 1 status, that's going to be huge for them.
Absolutely. To be fair, if I'm a player now, if I was involved in that squad, you have to park the injuries. They're done. They're injured. Those boys are injured. They're not going to be playing. But we have boys. We're going to have 15 Armagh men playing this week. You know, that's a given. It's up to them to go out and deliver and do their role. So injuries, far from ideal, but it can't be an excuse. We have time to prepare for it. That's what squads are for. Obviously, yes, there are some key men with the likes of Aidan in particular, who has been probably our main player this past 2 or 3 years. But like I said earlier, one man's loss is another man's gain. So we have to get our heads around that and park it straight away. The Ulster semi-final last year has to be hurting for that group of players. We literally didn't show up at all. Played with no hunger, desire, drive. They didn't deliver on anything that you just automatically would have expected from them. And they'll know that. And I'm sure a few clips from that game and a bit of video analysis this week won't be too long, relighting a fire within the whole group. And then, like you say, it's absolutely in our hands what we can do this weekend. Donegal, in one hand, they've scored 18 points against Tyrone. They scored another 120 at the weekend, and that was without Michael Murphy, who was gone after a few minutes. So they're scoring heavily, and attack-wise, they're in a good place. But defensively, they were woeful at the weekend. I can't. We bet them in whatever it was 2010 up in Crossmaglen in the qualifiers, and they were bad that day. But I think defensively they were even worse the other day. So they couldn't possibly do that bad 2 weeks in a row. But there definitely is ways to be got at them, and to ask serious questions of them, because whether it was one-on-one situations or whether there was 2 or 3 players surrounding Monaghan players, the Monaghan man was still getting through. It's very hard to fix all that in a week if there's genuine issues there. So I would like to see our Division 1 status is in our own hands. We can go after them and create problems, surely. I think we're going to need more men ahead of the ball again. We spoke about this last week, and it didn't really change in terms of just having the one man up front. That's not going to pose huge problems to them, because you're basing it on a running game, which is what suits them perfectly. So if we can get a few more men ahead of the ball and run directly at goal, I definitely think that we can cause issues and trouble for them. And they wouldn't know of maybe the likes of a Ross McQuillan, who has serious pace and breaking from defence. That's something that Donegal struggled with Ray McGeeney and Carl O'Connell and both wing half backs. So we have the personnel to cause them the same and more trouble than Monaghan did. But in terms of their attacking play, we're really going to need to be on our game also for it. But yeah, very exciting. Exciting as a supporter, because there's only another 5 or 6 days, and we're getting to see the boys perform again. And exciting for them that they can get a win, which, like I said, will be a huge confidence boost for them personally. And obviously, I suppose the ramifications of it in terms of Division 1 status is massive then.
Yeah, definitely, Oren. It's definitely a big game. As you say, it's great to have football back and only be 5 or 6 days away now from another Armagh game. So we'll be looking forward to that Donegal game on Thursday's podcast. We'll be previewing that show. And to finish today's show, we got an exclusive interview with Armagh manager Kieran McGeeney, and he gave us his thoughts after Armagh's loss on Saturday night. So, Oren, thanks very much for joining us and coming on to discuss the game.
Not a problem at all, Sean. Anytime.
Kieran, a 5-point loss. Obviously tough result to take, but good performance.
Yeah, probably didn't reflect the effort that we put in, but lost a lot of players during it. Otherwise, we grouped well and got themselves back into it. They were just missing, a couple of easy scores down the home straight, like just give Tyrone the cushion they needed to go into the last quarter. And then we were down to 14 men because we couldn't bring anybody else on. So yeah, a bit disappointing. Like we put a lot into it. Like it's cost us a lot, but we didn't get the result.
And I suppose the penalty was the big turning point in the game if you had got that.
Yeah, would have given us that would have given us I think 4 or 5 point lead going into the last quarter, like, which is a completely different game. But if fans are buts.
And I suppose a couple of injuries concerns.
Yeah, we lost 5 players, all through injuries, and like that's a big loss for us. Like it's very unlikely that they'll be available for next week. Like they're all very innocuous things, but ankle all that sort of stuff. So it's very disappointing, as I say. The performance came at like a high cost, but like it wasn't a dirty game, or there weren't bad tackles. It was just very innocuous things that happened. So very disappointed that way, but we just have to regroup and go back at it.
And I suppose, as you said, 5-point defeat, but losing your whole full back line before half time, you're bound to be pleased with it too.
Plus 2 of the subs that came on.
Yeah.
So for they really showed some tremendous character. All the young players played well, but it's just a very costly performance. Like not to get the points, but if you had to get the points, like in secure Division 1, that'd be brilliant. Like it's even though you're going to be struggling for the rest of the year, possibly it still could be worth it. But that's the way it goes.
And 226 across 2 games, Kieran. Obviously we talk about your firepower all the time. That's good scoring.
Yeah, it is. Like I'm considering what we missed too. We should be putting those other things away, like especially from set pieces, like so. But just regroup and get the fellas that are looking at it. It's going to be a big ask for them to take it from going here next week. Like, a lot of players going to get game time that mightn't see it coming. So
I suppose next week, Donegal, obviously, you don't want a repeat of last year.
No.
This is probably a game you're looking forward to.
Yeah, no, like it's just you like your full squad for it, but that's just listen. That's football. We have to go out there and play with what we have, and I still feel like the boys have enough to get a result. So hopefully that'll happen.
Great, Kieran. Thank you for coming on.
Cheers.